Hi there. We are going to be beginning our study of probability, and we'll start with looking at two-way tables. And here is your Pear Deck, and so you're going to want to put your name on the first screen of your Pear Deck. This is the agenda for this video lesson, or the same lesson that we'll do live with students. Is we're going to look at an example of a two-way table, then we'll fill in some missing cells, we'll interpret the tables, and then we want to look at three types of frequency, three types of relative frequency: joint relative, marginal relative, and conditional relative frequency. And then we'll see how two-way tables can help us solve probability problems. So we have given you an example of a two-way table here. And I want you to look over what this table is measuring and what the numbers might be reflecting. And then answer the question, what do you notice about this two-way table? And what do you wonder? And you can type your answer in right into the text area. So these are some definitions, some types of relative frequencies. And we're going to start with a joint relative frequency is found by dividing a frequency that is not in the total row or total column by the grand total. So I kind of think of this as like an individual cell amount. When you divide that by the grand total, that's called the joint relative frequency. A marginal relative frequency is found by dividing what's in the margin, namely a row total or column total, by the grand total. And a conditional relative frequency is found when you divide the cell by the column or row total. A two-way relative frequency table displays both joint relative frequencies and marginal relative frequencies. Okay. So here's our first example where we have to complete the two-way table. It shows the responses of girls and boys who are surveyed when asked about their preference of pets. And we're going to complete the row and column totals along with the grand total in the table. So I'm going to start with pink, and that'll be my total number of girls. And that's 19 plus 3 is 22. And the total number of boys, 18 plus 10 is 28. And the total there, I'm going to actually put in dark blue. Oops. I want to keep that pink. And then do dark blue down here. 22 plus 28 looks like 50 students were surveyed. That's what this looks like to me. Now let's see how many students preferred the dog, the cat, and other, okay? And let's use cyan blue for this. So how many students preferred dogs? 22. Cats, there were 15 cat lovers in this class, and 13 students preferred other kinds of pets. And what we notice is that, I'm going to keep this dark blue. What we notice is that what the total of the columns are when we add that together, 37 plus 13 is 50, is the total of the rows. So let's highlight this bottom number here. That's what we call the grand total. And so we could make some inferences about this table. We could say, what is the joint relative frequency that of girls who prefer cats? And that would be 9 out of 50. Or we could say, what is the marginal relative frequency of girls who answered this survey? And we would look across to girls and we would say 22 out of 50. So we're going to get practice answering questions from a table. But first, I want to create a two-way relative frequency table. Now, a relative frequency table is when we take all of the values that were in the cells. So let's go back. So the 10, 9, 3. And we divide those values by the grand total of 50. And so we're going to take every single number that was in the table and divide it by 50, and then turn it into a decimal. So 6/50ths is the same thing as 12/100ths. 12/100ths is 0.12. So I like getting denominators of 10 or 100, but you could use a calculator and just do 6 divided by 50. So I like this Desmo Scientific Calculator. It works really good. We can do 6 divided by 50, and we get 0.12. All right, I'm going to get a denominator of 100. 10 over 50 is the same thing as 20 over 100, or 0.20. We could also say 0.2. And when I add across, I have 18 plus 10 is 28 over 50. That will be the same thing as 56 over 100, or 0.56. All right, now we're going to add down. 9 plus 6 is 15 over 50 is the same thing as 30 over 100, or 0.30, or 0.3. And then we're going to add down here. 13 over 50 is the same thing as 26 over 100, or 0.26. And then let's take our highlighter and let's notice what happens as we add our relative frequencies in the total row. Let's look. We have 0.44 plus 0.30, that makes 0.74, plus 0.26 will equal 1 whole. Same thing here, I'll use a different color, and let's add 0.44 to 0.56, that will be 1 whole. And so that's how you know, if you haven't made a mistake, that when you add the total rows together or the total columns together, you're going to get 1 as a grand total. Stephens, so this is your turn. So we want you to complete the tables. I'll get you going, but then I would like you to continue, okay? I'll get you going though. What we notice here in the top, and the context is all written, so we want you to always read the context. He surveyed 75, there's the 75, of his classmates about their participation in school activities as well as whether they have a part-time job. And so the do you have a part-time job is the yes or no, and what activities he's asking them about is up here. And the results are shown. So it says to complete the two-way frequency table. Well, first we have to complete the regular two-way table. And I'm noticing here that some number plus 5 equals 15, right? So this has to be 10. And I know that you've had practice doing this. 12 plus something equals 18. This must be 6. And over here, 51 plus, is it 24? And I could just do 75 minus 51 to get that. For me, I enjoy working mental math with numbers, but not everybody does. Some of you are going to want to use a calculator because it's just what you prefer. All right, so 51 minus the sum of this. I will use a calculator in this case. 51 minus, I think it was 10 plus 12 plus, and I have to look. 51 minus 10 plus 12 plus 9. And that'll be 20. So I'm going to put 20 right here. So of the 75 kids that Stefan surveyed, 20 of them play or are involved in both of these activities and have a job. Ooh, busy, busy, those 20 students. All right, then we're going to continue. 20 plus 30. You see there's more than one way you can complete this two-way table. And then for this one, I'm going to take 24 and subtract off 10. That'll be 14. Then subtract off 11. So this will be 3, I believe. Just double checking. I'm going to add these numbers. 11 plus 10 is 21, plus 3 is 24. That is correct. And now I'm going to add these two numbers together and I get 12. All right, so now your turn is to go ahead and complete the relative frequency table, remembering that you want to do 10 over 75 in that first cell. And we probably want to round everything to the nearest hundredth, so call it 0.13. And then you can just go on to 12 over 75, etc. All right, so you go ahead and complete that. All right, now we have a Venn diagram and a two-way table. Okay, we should look at what's in the Venn diagram. I always recommend looking at that before even reading the context. So something about 10,000 hours. So apparently, 10,000 hours is the blue circle. One major is the red circle. There are 37 who did both 10,000 hours and won the major, and 6 who did neither. And it says Marlena collected data on whether 65 professional golfers have practiced for at least 10,000 hours in their career and whether they've won a major championship. The Venn diagram shows her data. Complete the two-way frequency table. So now I'm going to look at these categories. And the number of the 65, the number who both won a major and practiced for at least 10,000 hours is 37, because that's where the Venn diagrams overlap. The number who have not practiced for at least 10,000 hours, so that's in the red, but have not won a major, that's 8. And what about practice for 10,000 hours, so that's in the blue, and they've not won a major? That would be 14. And finally, the number 6 comes into play here when we say they haven't practiced for at least 10,000 hours, so nothing in the blue circle, and they haven't won a major, nothing in the red circle. So it must be these 6. And if I go ahead and add these numbers together, just like other two-way tables, we're going to see that it equals the 65 that were surveyed. So I added up the number who won a major, and that's 45. And I can see that in the Venn diagram right here, 45 people won a major. Who've not won a major is going to be 20. And when I add those together, I do get 65, which is the 65 golfers that were surveyed. Now let's add down, because it should be the same when I add down. All right, 37 plus 14, that's going to be 51. 8 plus 6 is going to be 14. And 51 plus 14 gives me my 65 that I'm looking for. All right, so that's the first part of our video, and we'll continue the rest in class.